Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
You're listening to Inside Outa with Lois Mudley.
Hello and welcome to this jam-packed show of Inside Outa. I'm Lois Mudley, Head of Communications at Outa, the organization undoing tax abuse. Well, recently on the show has been focusing on whistleblowing. 2 weeks ago, we caught up with Outa's Head of Investigations, Eric Neetling, as Outa couldn't do our work without the input of whistleblowers. And then last week, we connected with Gabriela Rosano from the Open Democracy Advice Center, as an organization who do a lot of work towards advising. Sorry, I'm just reading now. Sorry.
You're listening to Inside Outa with Lois Mudley.
Hello and welcome to this jam-packed episode of Inside Outa. I'm Lois Mudley, the Head of Communications at Outa, the organization undoing tax abuse. Well, recently on the show, we've been focusing on whistleblowing, and over the last 2 weeks, we caught up with Outa's Head of Investigations, Eric Neetling, who is superb at what he does, firstly. And, we at Outa couldn't do the work that we do without the input of whistleblowers. So he gave us a little insight into what he does and how we protect whistleblowers and what we do with their information once it comes through our safe portal. Then last week I connected with Gabriela Rosano from the Open Democracy Advice Center, an organization that's doing a lot of work towards protecting whistleblowers. And this week I'm very excited to be chatting with SAA whistleblower Cynthia Stimpel, who some of you may know. She stopped the awarding of the something like 250 million rand tender that SAA was about to give to BNP Capital, and Outa was very involved in halting that process. Later in the show, I'll be getting an update from Yamkela Ntola, who is our Water and Environment Portfolio Manager in our Portfolio Mangers Progress Report. And we have some words of wisdom from Outa's Dr. Makhosi Khoza, who recently attended the state capture inquiry.
Less corruption, more accountability. Stay tuned to Inside Outa.
Well, joining me today is Cynthia Stimpel, a brave woman with lots of integrity, and she blew the whistle on SAA awarding, or almost awarding, around about 250 million rands to BNP Capital. And you would know a lot more about that from Outa's work and involvement in that case. But I'm so happy to have you in the studio. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Thank you for inviting me. At the moment, I'm not doing anything except yoga. My favorite outdoor sport is hiking, mountain climbing, and yoga, and I've spent a lot of time on it recently. My family, I'm married. I have 2 grown-up daughters and 2 grandchildren whom I love dearly. And from a working career perspective, I've spent my entire career in banking and the last 10 years at SAA in the Treasury Department. 8 years of that was financial risk manager, and the last 2 was as the group treasurer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you were when you were treasurer at the SAA, you flagged a very big flag, a very big red flag around the BNP Capital case, and questioned Dudu Mayeni's attempt to push this tender through. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that came around?
Okay, so just a quick background on that. BNP were first enlisted as a transaction advisor, and they had a specific mandate, which was to restructure our debt portfolio, restructure our balance sheet, and also to look at the aircraft payments, the leases for that. Subsequent to that, we had already put out 2 RFPs, which were not successful. And then in April 2016, our acting CFO, Pumezan Hansi, at the time, said that she'd like to use BNP Capital and change their current scope to sourcing funds for SA. The funds we were currently looking at was 15 billion. we were called together as a financial risk subcommittee, and we also looked at obviously the funding for SAA, and the team at the time were uncomfortable that we may not be following the procurement corporate governance process, and in that meeting had a debate of what's best to do, and it was recommended that we rather go out and put that RFP out into the market. Obviously, Ms. Nancy had then said, well, she's going to take it to board and we must leave it with her and she will decide. On the 6th of May, I was called in then by Ms. Nancy and given a document, and she told me, you're always challenging and questioning. So before you look at this document, let me explain the background. She got approval from the board that we could change the scope for BNP Capital and that they could go ahead and source the funds for 15 billion. So I said, let me have a look at the document, which I did. When I read the document, I found out that they were going to be paid 3% on 15 billion rand to source funding for SAA. That equated to 300 million rand.
Wow.
And immediately I said to her, I'm not prepared to sign this. My task and in my balance scorecard is to save money for this organization. And my balance scorecard states I need to save 300 million. And here am I just wasting it away to someone that this can cost a fraction of the cost. I said the banks do not charge that much. They charge per basis point and not by percentage. So I said to her, look, I'll go and do some research and ask the banks on that. And she said, oh, well, she wasn't thinking it in that way, but yes, she will see if she can negotiate the price. Initially, they wanted 5%, but she managed to negotiate it at 3%. I then said to her, well, I can't do anything next week because I'm leaving tonight to go on. It was a short pilgrimage I was doing, a walk from Paris to Chartres. And I said I wouldn't even be contactable by cell. But when I get back, I will definitely do something about it. And she then said, okay, but who's going to be there? And I said, my deputy, who is Michael Klein, he'll be taking over and he'll be there and I will have a chat to him. I then went to chat to Michael about it and ensured that he doesn't sign the form in my absence, which he agreed. While I was away, the Wednesday, the following week, I got an SMS or via WhatsApp from Michael saying that it was approved by BAC, which is the Bid Adjudication Committee. Upon returning to work, I then sent out 3 emails. I first thought doing all 5 banks, but I thought I didn't want to create anything in the bank, jitters in the bank, and because the banks all talk to one another, I'll just send out to 3. I made it generic. I wrote there just a hypothetical quote. What would you charge SAA if SAA put out a 15 billion tender now for sourcing of funds? They came back and said, gave me the prices, which I then sent to our CFO. She didn't answer any of my emails. I then proceeded to send a message via WhatsApp, and she said, you don't make the decisions around your board does.
So when did, I just want to fast forward a little bit. When did you start publicly flagging this to the, you mentioned Treasury earlier, you had also gone to Treasury, you had gone to Corruption Watch or other organizations. Can you just tell me about?
Yes. So the very Wednesday while I was away, when I got the SMS, that was my first sort of whistleblowing message. I sent it to National Treasury and I said to them, this is a whistleblowing message. I am away, so this is the only way I can do it. This is currently what's happening. Approval has been given at BAC and therefore it will go through the various governance and it would be approved. When I got back, I then tried to speak to Pameza or set up a meeting to try and stop it. I thought there was still time to stop it, but nothing happened. On the 24th of May, it was approved by board via round robin. And that's when I realized I need to go further with this. Actually, that following weekend, I called a meeting with my family, my brothers and sisters, and I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I feel so uncomfortable. I cannot call myself a group treasurer if I know about this. boss, and I keep quiet about it. And for instance, my brother-in-law advised you could either resign and walk away. And I said, I can't do that because this will still come out. I said, while I hold this position, I need to speak out. And they all gave me their support at the time.
I wanted to ask you about that moment of moral courage. That exact, did you feel it almost instantly that, okay, today I'm going to speak out because this is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just, find another job and let somebody else deal with this. I'm going to fix this.
Yeah.
What was going through you that morning?
Yeah, I just felt that I could not, I did not deserve the position as group treasurer. I did not deserve if I did not speak out. Then I'm not worth my weight in gold. And I felt I need to be honest with my personal values and I need to speak out. And then, so once my family knew, I thought, now I can go ahead. I firstly went to speak to an executive manager and asked, what's the route to go in SAA? And they actually advised me, don't go the internal route because someone previously had whistleblown, Sylvain Boss, and he immediately got suspended once it got through to board. And they advised me not to do that. And then I said, well, I'm going to do the formal process. So I typed a formal letter out together with putting each of the documents showing the whole process of what had transpired, where governance process was challenged. And I put together my emails and my questions that I wanted. And I put it on a flash disk. I called National Treasury from my cell and I said, I have this information. I need to give it to someone. They said they'll get back to me. They called me and they said they're prepared to pick it up. I arranged a meeting and I gave them the flash disk. I heard nothing from them. Then via email, I contacted Corruption Watch and sent them an email saying that I have more information. And they emailed back saying, thank you, we will contact you, but I received nothing. Then I spoke to another senior executive manager who said, you know what, Outa is also looking at whistleblowers and willing to take on cases. Contact them. And I was given the cell number of Mr. Duvenal. And I then contacted him and he arranged a meeting and we met. And I gave him, I had a full discussion like we're having now, giving him the full details and also gave him the information.
And what was Wayne's reaction? How did Outa support this whistleblowing process?
They actually took it serious and said that they will act on it straight away. I must say I was very surprised. The next morning, they contacted me again and saying, have you got time to meet? Because they will bring the rest of the team who have spent all night going through the information. I then met them very early that morning around 6 o'clock because I still had to be at work at 8. And they looked at all the information and they wanted me to clarify one or two things. And they had already split and summarized and said that that day they will do research into... By that evening, they had done research into going to find out BNP, where the offices were. And it was Outa that found out that the FSB license had been expired. And it was them that raised it because by then, that was the 4th of July. The 5th of July, I was suspended from SAA. And because the information Outa wanted was more details on the BNP deal, and the files were sitting in procurement, and I kept calling the gentleman, can I look at the files? So I went to take the files, and I then copied them and brought them back. When bringing him back, and I told him I took your files, is when he went to complain, and that's how I got suspended. Anyway.
I think a lot of our listeners would know the court cases and Outa's involvement thereafter in the BNP Capital case. But for you as a whistleblower, what was the personal cost? I mean, you just mentioned now being suspended on the 5th of May. Can you just take us a little bit into that experience?
Yeah, it was the 5th of July.
5th of July.
I must say I was astounded because I was waiting for a discussion and explain my side, and that my main purpose was to protect the organization because I knew something was happening that wasn't kosher, and I wanted to protect this organization, and I wasn't even given time and space to do that. I was suspended. The personal cost is that so many things is, firstly, you lose that position. You are isolated. I was in contact with a friend of mine in the office, and she was saying they sent out a nasty email how bad I was. So they paint your name black entirely, and it's all different things. You're accused of things that never even happened, that they put out to staff, and staff are told not to contact you. So you are isolated completely. You become this pariah. From a personal cost perspective, you're now suspended. You can't even go out and look for work. And so there's no, I was suspended with pay. So at that time I got paid. And we had taken the case first to the Labour Court, and then we took it to CCMA. But SA kept postponing it, so the cost was growing on my side with the lawyers, and whereas SA was just pushing it forward all the time. Eventually, my lawyer said, "You know what? Let's just settle," which we did. So the personal cost is what I would have earned in a year, almost 2 million a year. Times that I hadn't turned 60 yet, and if I had to work another 4 years, times that over 4, that's 8 million rand.
Sure.
Yeah. So yes, it also a cost to your personal life, in that my team, no one contacted me. None of your peer level group contacted you, and you were truly isolated.
People you had relationships with. And I mean, this is the cost that a lot of whistleblowers would have to face. But would you say you regret the decision?
No, I do not regret it. I will do it again. Yeah.
Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, really inspiring work. The standing up, the moral courage that you've shown, the active citizenry. I think South Africa owes you a great debt for stopping that, obscene amount of money that could have been wasted by our SOE. We're going to be back with Yamkela Ntola, our Water and Environment Portfolio Manager. Thank you so much.
Less tax abuse, more transparency. Stay tuned to Inside Outa.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za.
You're listening to Inside Outa with Lois Mudley.
Well, joining us on the line is Outa Water and Environment Portfolio Manager Yamkela Ntola. Thank you so much for joining us, Yamkela. I know it's been a busy week for you. You've just written to Parliament. The Water Portfolio Parliamentary Inquiry is on at the moment, criticizing Minister Nomvula Mokonyana's management when she was the Minister of Water Affairs. So can you just tell us a little bit about that submission? What was in it, and what was the damning evidence that you had laid out?
Sure. So what the Portfolio Committee of Water and Sanitation, as well as the Standing Committee of Public Accounts, have at least indicated to do is that they will undertake a parliamentary commission of inquiry into the functioning of the Department of Water and Sanitation. So what we currently have now are basically the draft terms of reference, and these have apparently been adopted. But what we have done is to make submissions to Parliament in any case, in line with those terms of reference. And it's very broad in terms of what is currently happening within the department that we think are issues and questions should be posed on, as well as specific issues that have arisen in 4 water entities. And these pertain to irregular appointments, people who shouldn't be appointed in specific positions, the awarding of specific contracts. There's instances where corruption has been reported and nothing has been done within that water entity. So, our position is obviously then to give all this information to parliamentarians, and they obviously undertake the process of holding those responsible accountable for it.
Okay, well, that's only the first part of your submission. Can you tell us what you're unpacking next?
So that's really, the submission is quite long. To the extent where I've actually indicated to Parliament that there will probably be further submissions to add on to that one. This particular submission just basically gives what I term as a narrative component, just to basically be able to tell the story for parliamentarians, as well as give the evidence that speaks to that story. The second part of that submission will then speak to the policy and legal contraventions per submission. And, if we're going to be holding anyone criminally liable, then it's very important that we be able to indicate what elements of any particular crime have been contravened and what course of action should follow suit subsequently. So, within the necking, that's a mission. What may also further action may come if it's sufficient enough to submit to Parliament. We'll also be finding a mechanism whereby we can make that information available.
Well, thanks, Yamkela. And if you want to know more about the work that he's doing, visit our website, www.outa.co.za. And if you were inspired by what Yamkela was talking about, please consider becoming a supporter.
Engage in active citizenry. Join us weekly on Inside Outa.
Well, next up, we have a quick message from Outa's Executive Director, Makhosi Khoza, who attended Monday's hearings of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. She reflects on some of the similar treatment she experienced to the Commission's most recent witness, and that's former ANC MP, her colleague, Feki Mentor.
Vicky Manto is a very courageous woman, and believe you me, I know I've been through the processes. To be virtuous in a society that has a political leadership that is so compromised is very risky. It is nerve-wracking, and it is very important for us to understand that she needs all our support. And Vicky Manto, what she was saying about the difficulties that she went through when she started performing her role to hold the executives to account in Parliament, and how she was vilified and how she had to be subjected to disciplinary processes. It was like I was reliving my own process as well when I was a member of Parliament, being persecuted, being subjected to disciplinary processes, but the corrupt people being left to continue looting as they wish. There is clear indication that indeed there was other people that were running the affairs of the state. In fact, her experience in China is really revealing that the Guptas are actually were literally driving the program of the president. To me, going forward, is that what's going to be very, very important is to see the recommendations of this commission being implemented. We cannot waste taxpayers' money on commissions after commissions, and all the evidence that's coming out then goes to waste. It just collects dust in the archives. I can tell you that if South Africa were to solve this problem, we will then be back on our track to a prosperous South Africa, because then our state will be free from capture and corruption.
And that's a wrap for today's show. A big thank you to Cynthia Stimpel for coming on and sharing her courageous story of whistleblowing at SAA. For regular updates on our portfolio manager's work and what is happening at the State Capture Inquiry, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is @OutaSA. Remember that Outa works closely with whistleblowers. The most effective and secure way for prospective whistleblowers to contact us is via our online whistleblower reporting platform on the Outa website. Just navigate towards the whistleblowing tab on the drop-down menu, and you will be taken to a safe and secure portal where you may remain anonymous. You can upload any information you have on corruption and irregular spending. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to being with you again next week.
Thanks for listening to Inside Outa. Tune in next week when we delve deeper into undoing tax.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za. Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za.